So this video is really kind of some initial kind of 2 points that instantly stuck out after I read an article today. So I'm going to try and keep it as focused as possible on really two main reasons why I think that the Bechdel test is specifically what the Swedish theaters are doing just seems irrelevant, ridiculous, and really pandering. And it's also kind of a video reply to Mundane Matt's reaction, because apparently he read, if not from the same location, a different location, the same story. I was on Cinema Blend today, and I'm going to just briefly kind of read the intro so you know what the story's about. The headline is Swedish Theaters Judging All Releases for Gender Bias by Posting Bechdel Test Ratings. And the article starts with this. Gender treatment. The one subject that the entirety of humanity agrees on all the time without fail. No, wait. I must be thinking about something else. Two people in the same room generally have at least one conflicting view of either gender's role in society. So international bonding over the subject is impossible. So it's rather surprising that some theaters in Sweden will boldly examine gender bias in cinema by publicly posting films' A ratings according to the Bechdel test, which examines the role of women and what they play in film by asking the following three questions. A, does the film have two female characters? B, do they speak to one another? And C, do they speak to one another about something other than a man? And in a nutshell, that is what the three questions the Bechdel test goes by. And essentially you get a fail or pass based on these questions. Like I said, I'm going to really just concentrate on two main arguments. The first argument is what I would call, just off the top of my head, the pure artist or the purest philosophical, position of the artist. And that is when you're making a piece of art, whether it's a drawing, for example, as the artist, when you sit down to draw something, and you're just sitting in your room or if you're in a studio, whatever level of artist you are, and whatever level of success you are, it's not the position. You don't approach the drawing as it's happening, wondering, gee, should I use pencil A or pencil B? Because if I use pencil B, subsection of humanity, A is going to feel included in this or represented in this piece of art. And if I use this color as opposed to this color, I may offend this cross-section of humanity. These are not questions that the artist should be burdened with. That's not the position of the artist. The position of the artist is to honestly express something from their standpoint based on their creativity. That it begins and ends there, essentially, if you're talking about what the artist is supposed to do when they are creating. And the same really kind of goes for all mediums of art as from the purest perspective. You don't take this photograph unless you're setting out to make a point about a feeling or a stance. But not all artists are activists. Not all artists are, doing art to necessarily express a certain standpoint or point of view that's has a sociological or political agenda. Some artists draw because they like to draw, and that's, if you get down to the purest standpoint of art, that ultimately is where all art should come from, a place of integrity, honesty, naturalness. And of course, there are so many levels of justifications and reasons and motivations behind art, but when you get down to it, that is it. It is expression, and it is honesty. Some artists never share their work with the rest of the world, and that's just fine. Now, things change if you're talking about a product. And if you're talking about a product, this leads into really my secondary other argument, which can be directly linked, which is if we're talking about a product that, like a big commercial film, or really any type of commercial product that is meant to reach the masses, the largest cross-section that you can get out there, the market determines this. And to be clear, I don't believe in all arguments about the free market. I don't believe that the free market is the end-all, be-all, when it comes to questions of morality and our products being, made in that are employing, really deplorable methods of production. That is not that argument, so don't bring that here. But the free market, when it comes to and the Bechdel test, we're talking about films, that is ultimately that is the end all be all in this situation. Arguments of sexism, whether it be misandry or misogyny, these types of questions are irrelevant. They have no real impact because at the end of the day, commercial film, particularly larger budget films, are target marketed. They're demographically, pointed at specific subsections, and that's just how it is. If there's a film or there is a market for a film about people that obsess on cocoa beans and what type of cocoa beans go into their mocha, every day, and they're and that's the subject of the film. If there is a market for this product, it will be exploited. And when I say that if there's a market, there's a market. You can make the argument there's a market for everything. If one person wants to see something, technically you can make the argument, well, there's a market for that. But that's not how the real world works. That's not how the studio systems work. There has to be a cost-benefit analysis. How much does it cost to make this film? How much is it going to cost to advertise this film and market it? How much is it going to cost for the talent involved? I mean, all these are questions that you have to ask. And at the end of the day, there's that's all the market cares about. So, whether or not there are enough females, represented in a way that people want, if people didn't want to see garbage like Transformers, they wouldn't go and see it. Nobody is. That's why I don't see a realistic argument for such, because people are not you're not institutionally being forced to see Transformers. You're not institutionally being forced to see films with male action stars that are relegated to, the disposable male who is emotionally stunted and can make, has a very small emotional range and always has to, put himself in harm. I mean, these types of cliches, the John Wayne cliche and those types of things, that's there and because it sells, not because it's true, right, justify, any of that. That's just how it is. And that's what the market will continue to churn this stuff out until people stop going. So if, like this test, the Bechdel test, I mean, when you start to look at the list, it accumulates of films that would have failed this rating, and even the creators and the supporters in the Swedish theaters that openly enjoy films like the Lord of the Rings trilogy, Star Wars, The Social Network, Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, almost apparently all but one Harry Potter movie would have failed this. I mean, the question ultimately comes down to, what is the point of instating this test? Is it a form of censorship, like passive censorship? If anybody would not go to a film because it failed the Bechdel test, it makes one question, what is your motivation for going to a film? Because, most people's motivation for going to a film, is largely either escapist entertainment or wanting to be confronted in a safe environment with questions that we don't really look at in our day-to-day world, or, these are the types of reasons that people go to films. If you are not going to go to a film because it doesn't have any female characters or enough, doesn't fill the quota of female characters, I think you're missing the point of cinema. I think you're missing the point of art. But that's I guess that's personal conjecture. But I mean, really, this is a very, very strange proposition. And like Matt, Monday Matt, I don't really believe that this system is going to come to the States. But it is another just kind of frightening example, in my opinion, of highly irrational and illogical small interest groups getting their way because people are afraid to say no because they don't want to appear to be sexist or but like I said, the larger question really is this ultimately, if you're going to try and impose to tell a writer that please feel free to continue to entertain us, come up with a story that from your imagination, give us something special, give us something powerful, but it's got to fall in these guidelines. Like I just think that that's a complete disservice to an artist. And, it's certainly, and the irony, I think, is that a lot of these, from what I'm seeing, the theaters that are embracing this are art house theaters, which is really the place that you go to see films that try to get away from dogmatic structure or, films that fall into the most basic cookie cutter cliches of being as safe as possible and, as antiseptic as possible while telling a story. Art film and independent film is where you go to get away from that. And these are the theaters that are imposing this rating system. That just seems really hypocritical. But anyways, this has gone on pretty long, so I think I kind of made the two major points. I could really go on and on and on about this. There are countless other counter arguments as well besides the two, but between whether or not you believe in what art should be about, honest expression, or whether you believe in the free market, there's really no place for this rating system. It's not like the MPAA or any equivalents in other countries, which give you a rating system that while I can argue against the MPAA, and that's an entirely different discussion, but I do understand its place. If you are a parent and you have children that you don't want to see certain things because you don't feel they're ready for it yet, I understand that we've got a system that says it's got, violence or gratuitous violence or nudity or strong sexual content. I understand these things. This Bechdel test, it's really doesn't offer anything of true content that is actually essential. It's, in my opinion, I don't feel like there's enough broccoli in films, so I want to spearhead a campaign that, puts in front of yet another thing in front of a piece of art. No matter how commercial it is, you can still say films to some extent are art. Let's go ahead and block that up and jam that up with another bias and another reason to filter things out, because I want my child, for the sake of this argument that I have, I want them to enjoy broccoli. So I want to make sure that broccoli is properly represented. I love blue. I want to see, how many times do we see blue? What piece of, how often is it clothing versus houses? These types of things can go on to infinity. These, you can make an argument for what you need, and then before you know it, you have, it becomes like a prescription commercial where you've got a whole page full of ratings in front of a film. Where does it really end? Because logically, one small interest group after another can come into this debate and continue to cloud something that's pretty simple. At the end of the day, we have arguably an effective rating system. Do we need to really keep adding other things that ultimately are not important? But I'm done talking about it. Thanks a lot for listening. If you've made it this far, I'm sorry. Goodbye.